Hello, staff. I wanted to take a moment and talk about equity and the path we have started taking in that direction. As you recall, we had the Oregon Center for Educational Equity come speak to us about understanding race and racism and one on microaggressions. In working with the Regional Education Network, we are looking to bring a guest speaker to talk to us about implicit bias. So why am I having us begin this conversation? We are living through a public health crisis, an economic crisis, a climate crisis, with fire and ice, and a civil rights crisis. And this past year has been one for the history books, to be sure. So why add this new learning now? If you remember, when I spoke to you in early September 2018, I asked you about your why, and I shared mine. Why do we work here in Jefferson School District 14J? What propels us to get up each morning and come to work? I hope you heard me say this before, but I'll repeat myself now. I really believe in the phrase, all means all. Every single child who comes to us is special and beautiful and needing of love and support. So I come to work and put on my armor for them. I'm not a superintendent because I love conflict or angry Facebook posts from the community or completing plans for ODE or my own ego or sense of self-importance. I'm a superintendent, I'm an educator, because I truly believe in the power of education and the incredible impact it can have on human lives. We are nothing in this world if we are not educated. When I was stumbling around my house looking for candles when we lost power in the recent ice storm, the light I turned on reminded me about education. Education represents that candle, lighting the way for others who are struggling in the darkness. Education is the way out of poverty and struggle. It is the answer to ignorance, violence, and disinformation that is destructive for our communities and our nation. Education breeds hope and promise. It allows children to dream and to rise above their station in life, to reach their full potential. I remember working with migrant families, and this high school girl lost her parents that year. They were deported. Because she was born here, she was able to stay. She had the ability to go back to Mexico and live with her parents, but she chose to live with her sister alone and finish high school. Imagine being 17 and alone and losing your parents, your anchor, your support. She finished high school with top honors and went to college to become a doctor. That is the promise of education. I've shared my own story with you. My parents were divorced, and I lived with my mother in Los Angeles. We were poor, and my mom struggled to pay the rent. We moved several times. It was an ugly divorce, and I suffered with self-esteem and self-worth issues, with finding friends and fitting in. It was my teachers who brought light to my world. They weren't just collecting paychecks. They were opening the world to me and telling me that I was worthy to be in this world and contribute. And I owe much of who I am today to my teachers. So how does all this relate to equity? I was at a disadvantage in life and I struggled, but I'm a white man. And with that comes a certain amount of privilege and inherent support. In working with migrant students and their families for 8 years, and in working with English learners and refugee students, hearing their stories, I learned that not everyone has the same feeling of love and support that I did. I listened to one of Brene Brown's podcasts called Unlocking Us, where she interviewed Emmanuel Aiko, who is a pro football player and a writer of uncomfortable conversations with a black man. When asked if he ever gets angry, he said, and I'm paraphrasing, I don't have the luxury of getting angry. Brene, he said, I'm a 6'4", 235-pound black man, and if I get angry, I'm seen and viewed as a threat. The point is, we may have students in our classes who don't feel like they belong. They may not feel like they are free to be themselves and loved for who they are. If we say all means all, if we say every child will succeed and reach or exceed standards or reach their full potential, that has to mean everyone. Equity training is simply about listening and understanding other points of view and being reflective. Equity work is not about attacking white people or assigning blame or shame. As we walk down this path, some of you may feel awkward or threatened, which is fine because there are no wrong feelings. I would just encourage you to stay in the conversation and to seek to understand, to be vulnerable. It might seem ironic to some that a white man is leading equity work. I remember volunteering to be in a fishbowl discussion at a superintendent's conference a couple years ago, and I was the only man and the only white man in the circle talking about equity. Not only did I feel vulnerable and awkward, I felt that people didn't think I belonged there. What could I possibly have to contribute? And to this day, I'm still not taken seriously by minority leaders because in their mind, what do I know? I'm the problem after all, not the solution. Brene Brown talks about leading by being vulnerable, and I definitely felt vulnerable and disrespected that day. But I engage in the equity conversation and lead the work not because I have a great story about overcoming injustice, but because I have an empathetic heart, and I believe that every human being has equal worth and value. Because I am a human being who is not perfect and who wants every student to feel like a meaningful member of our school family. Because I recognize that I am privileged, and with that privilege comes a responsibility to understand the story of others. So in closing, I will continue to lead equity work because of my passion to serve all kids. And I hope you'll join me down this path of learning. All I ask is that you be open to understanding and hearing other perspectives, and know that no one is trying to criticize you for who you are. Thank you. Have a good day.